Is the American dream still alive, or is the middle class vanishing before our eyes? We're starting an investigative deep dive into the forces reshaping our economy and society. For generations, the promise was simple: work hard and you will prosper. But today, millions are working harder than ever, only to find themselves falling further behind. The traditional American dream meant stable employment, owning a home, affording education, and securing a comfortable retirement. For many, that dream feels like a historical relic. This is the paradox of the modern economy. Why are wages stagnating while corporations achieve record profits? We are witnessing a fundamental shift in economic distribution. We call it the Great Decoupling, the point where worker productivity and worker pay stopped moving in tandem. Let's look at the statistics of this struggle. Imagine one line representing the cost of living skyrocketing, while another line, representing real wages, barely moves. This graphic perfectly illustrates the middle class squeeze. Since the 1970s, technology and innovation have driven American worker productivity up by nearly 60%. This is an extraordinary testament to efficiency and labor. Yet, despite all that added value, real wages, what your paycheck can actually buy, have only grown by a measly 15%. Where did the rest of the prosperity go? Adding insult to injury, the cost of essentials, healthcare, education, and childcare has surged by over 200%. These are not optional expenses, they are the pillars of middle-class life. When wages crawl and critical costs explode, the result is inevitable. Your paycheck buys less, and the foundational stability of the middle class erodes. The vanishing middle class is not an accident. It is the result of decades of policy choices and economic forces. But understanding the problem is the first step toward a solution. From globalization and automation to weakening labor unions and changing tax structures, the system is increasingly tilted toward capital over labor. These forces must be addressed. The question remains: can we fundamentally restructure our economy to relink prosperity to hard work? And can the American dream be saved for the next generation? Join us in the comments. The housing trap. Today we examine how institutional investors are fundamentally changing the residential real estate market and contributing to the vanishing middle class. For generations, the American dream was synonymous with financial security, upward mobility, and above all, homeownership. The biggest pillar of the middle class was homeownership. It served as the primary means for families to build equity and intergenerational wealth. But today, a new, powerful player has entered the market: institutional investors. These aren't individual families looking for a home. They are massive corporations with vast pools of capital, treating residential housing as a new asset class. You can see the evidence in new developments: rows upon rows of cookie-cutter homes being built, many of which are immediately earmarked for rental portfolios. The sheer scale of their market entry is staggering and fundamentally shifts the housing dynamics away from first-time homebuyers. Consider this alarming statistic. In some U.S. cities, as many as 1 in every 4 homes is being bought by a corporation, not a family. These purchases are fueled by massive institutional investors, often supported by names like BlackRock or Vanguard, treating housing as a perpetual income stream. This trend is rapidly turning America into what is often called a rentership society. The ability to own an asset and build equity is replaced by the necessity of perpetual renting, trapping individuals in a cycle that prevents wealth creation. This leads us to the crucial point about the flow of wealth. When corporations own the housing, the wealth generated from real estate, the rent payments and property appreciation flows directly up to Wall Street. This prevents that wealth from staying in local communities, where it would have typically been reinvested by middle-class homeowners. The result is a fundamental erosion of the traditional means of wealth building for the average American family. The housing trap is more than just rising prices. It's a structural change that is systematically dismantling middle-class wealth building and making the American dream vanish for many. Welcome to our investigation into the debt cycle and the system. We are exploring the forces behind the vanishing middle class. The American dream, the promise that hard work leads to upward mobility, feels increasingly out of reach for millions. Why is this happening? This is a documentary, an investigative look into the economic mechanisms that are redefining wealth distribution in America. For many, the cost of living has outpaced wages for decades, creating a constant, grinding financial strain on the middle class. To maintain their standard of living, to keep up appearances and meet basic needs, the middle class has increasingly turned to one dangerous solution: debt. Observe the symbols of modern financial life, the plastic that promises relief but delivers servitude. Student loans, credit card balances, and auto loans, the primary burdens for most households, are currently sitting at all-time highs. The pressure isn't just about survival, it's about maintaining a perception of success, forcing many to borrow simply to afford the previous generation's standard of life. But this reliance on debt is not accidental. It is rooted in a fundamental shift in our economic structure, the financialization of the economy. Look at the high-speed trading floors. This is where wealth is increasingly generated, not by building goods or services, but by moving money. Financialization refers to the dominance of financial markets, institutions, and motives in the operations of the domestic and international economies. The system is increasingly designed to profit from interest payments, fees, and speculation, rather than the slow, steady gains of real-world innovation and production. This leads us to a critical question about the structure we all operate within. Is the system fundamentally broken, having failed its original purpose of broadly distributing prosperity? Or is the system working exactly as intended, efficiently concentrating wealth and power for the very top 1%? In the next segment of our documentary, we will trace the legislative changes that facilitated this shift. Stay with us as we continue to investigate the death of the American dream.